You see why I had no problem with her being Times Athlete of the Year? You see why I said that she should have been on Team USA? You see why I had to go off on the likes of Cheryl Swoops and others who were clearly distant and dismissive of her, no matter how much they try to deny it? There was resentment towards her, and here's why I said it was stupid.
It's all over the internet. Caitlin Clark is back in the spotlight, and the debate is heating up once again.
Footage. Just figure out what these girls are doing and pissing you off so much when you ain't focused. Focus. She went back, refocused. That's why I love their whole.
What began as a simple gesture of support for an injured rival has spiraled into a full-blown social media battle. WNBA fans, critics, and online commentators are picking apart every word Caitlin Clark said.
Playing basketball already. For the simple fact is she can pass.
JuJu Watkins, the USC star who endured a devastating March Madness injury, has unexpectedly found herself at the heart of this controversy. But not by choice, her name is now being used against Caitlin Clark in a debate so bizarre it's almost unbelievable.
A lot of players in the country playing Division I basketball. Nobody scored more points in one game this year than you. That's the most.
That's crazy. Yeah. More to come for sure.
Yeah, Caitlin Clark who?
No, don't do that. Don't do that. Much respect there.
And yet, here we are again, stuck in the same toxic cycle. Caitlin Clark shows kindness, and the internet twists it into controversy. The backlash was immediate, harsh, and, unfortunately, predictable. Her tweet? Just 15 words and a heart emoji, sending all my thoughts and prayers to JuJu. Kid will come back stronger than ever. That's it. And somehow, it became yet another battleground for the endless culture war that seems to follow her everywhere.
NBA history when it comes to starting guards in this league. 19 years.
There was no malice, no condescension, just one athlete supporting another. But in the chaotic world of WNBA Twitter, that was all it took to spark outrage. Critics jumped in, accusing Clark of being disrespectful, dismissive, and even racially insensitive for calling JuJu a kid. The mental gymnastics were next level, and the hypocrisy? Absolutely off the charts.
Garofsky misses her first look from the perimeter to Boston. Back in, and it's Boston the finish.
This isn't about basketball anymore. It's about a fan base so fixated on hating Caitlin Clark that even her kindness gets twisted into controversy. Meanwhile, JuJu Watkins, the actual injured player, hasn't said a word. So, who is all this outrage really for? The answer says everything about what's wrong with sports discourse today. If you're tired of the nonsense, hit that like button, share this with someone who needs to see it, and subscribe for the unfiltered truth. Let's get into it.
Assist per game, best assist in her career last season. Gets away with a little push, and a little reaction.
The tweet that started it all, Caitlin Clark simply did what any good competitor would do. After JuJu Watkins suffered a scary injury during USC's March Madness game, Clark went on X to send her support.
Clark. Hass is going to let it fly.
Her message was short, sincere, and exactly what you'd expect from a true competitor. No grandstanding, no hidden agenda, just a simple show of support, sending all my thoughts and prayers to JuJu. Kid will come back stronger than ever. That's it.
JuJu, congratulations on a heck of a performance. So much on the line in this rivalry game. What was the mindset you guys brought into this game that allowed you to be successful?
I think teamwork. Everybody scored. Everybody made a positive effect on the game.
In a rational world, that would have been the end of it. But when it comes to Caitlin Clark, reason is hard to find. Within minutes, the trolls showed up.
Words of inspiration from WNBA phenom Caitlin Clark.
Fox 56
Turned out at the University of the Cumberlands last night to hear words of inspiration from WNBA phenom Caitlin Clark.
Fox 56 reporter Dejiana Wilson has more on how Clark's appearance was part of this year's Excellence in Leadership series.
The event drew hundreds of Kentuckians to
Not to wish JuJu well. Not to acknowledge Clark's sportsmanship. Instead, they picked apart her word choice like it was a federal investigation. The outrage centered on one tiny detail: Clark called Watkins kid. That was the so-called crime. Never mind that kid is a common term of endearment in sports, used by coaches, teammates, and legends alike. Suddenly, it was proof of Clark's supposed arrogance, disrespect, and privilege. The goalposts moved at warp speed, and the pylon began. The irony? It was impossible to ignore.
Henry had a clear out.
Ducks in, back Benley stays with her, blocked from behind. Now Clark looking to push, cross-court pass to Clark. She will launch and bury a three.
If JuJu Watkins had called Clark kid, no one would have batted an eye. In fact, if any other player had tweeted the exact same words, this wouldn't even be a story.
In that tempo, they play as well, but here is a huge, again, they play so well in transition.
But because it's Caitlin Clark, the woman who dared to bring millions of new fans to women's basketball, every word she says gets turned into a controversy. The double standard couldn't be clearer. This was never about protecting JuJu, it was about punishing Caitlin. The outrage machine went into overdrive, and the takes got wild fast. One critic scoffed, "Kid? You're only 3 years older than her. Check your ego." Another claimed, as a person of color, being called kid by a white girl feels belittling.
Winning is what's going to make people upset, so just win. Like, that's simply how I do.
Never mind that Clark and Watkins have no history of bad blood or that Watkins herself hasn't expressed any offense. The accusations kept piling up. Clark was labeled patronizing, condescending, even racially insensitive. All over a word that LeBron James, Steph Curry, and just about every coach in America use daily. The outrage became downright absurd. Some claimed Clark was trying to paint herself as a wise veteran, despite being just 22. Others argued she should have stayed silent, completely ignoring the fact that if she had, she would have been criticized for that too.
He gave a magazine to Beyonce, one to Blue Ivy, and one to Jay-Z.
The hypocrisy was stunning. These are the same people who demand more coverage for women's sports, until Caitlin Clark, the biggest star in the game, brings it. Then suddenly, everything she does is a problem.
Hey, that's what you just said. You good. You good.
Meanwhile, the actual victim, JuJu Watkins, was forgotten in all the chaos. While Twitter warriors pretended to defend her honor, no one actually bothered to check how she felt. No statements. No subtweets. No sign that she was even the slightest bit bothered.
Who taught you to dribble? Because you started when you were 5 years old.
Honestly, I probably kind of taught myself, but like I always wanted to be like my older brother, and I learned to ride my bike at maybe like 3 years old without training wheels, maybe 4 years old, but that was only because my older brother learned that day, and I was like, Mom, Dad, take mine off right now, I'm learning.
Wow. Yeah.
And I did. So.
But that encapsulates what...
Because she wasn't. This was never about JuJu. It was about using her injury as a weapon against Clark, and that's the ugliest part of it all.
I know you said you don't feel like a celebrity, but you lived in that spotlight really for the last year. What can you kind of describe what that feels like for you, since we can't experience that? And then also, what do you kind of expect the next several months quietly to feel like?
Let's be real, this backlash isn't about a tweet. It's about who Caitlin Clark is and what she represents. She's the small-town Iowa girl who shattered records, delivered ESPN's highest ratings in decades, and made the WNBA relevant to people who had never watched before. And for a certain segment of the old guard, that's unforgivable.
After a storybook college career filled with record-breaking moments and legions of new fans, NCAA superstar Caitlin Clark is ready to take her game to the next level.
They don't want new fans. They don't want change. They want their insular community back, even if it means tearing down the very star who's bringing new life to the sport. And the proof? It's everywhere.
What is that feeling like, knowing that you're the face of women's college basketball here?
That's a big title. I wouldn't say that. I think that it's just, I wouldn't be considered the person I am without my competition. I mean, the comp is everything. The conferences, the great teams. That's really what matters.
The goalposts never stop moving when it comes to Caitlin Clark. If she dominates on the court, she's accused of hogging the spotlight. If she shares the ball, critics say she's not assertive enough. If she stays quiet, she's labeled as lacking leadership. And now, when she simply shows support for an injured rival, she's being called patronizing. No matter what she does, someone finds a way to twist it into a problem. The constant scrutiny isn't about her actions, it's about finding reasons to tear her down.
At some point in time, you're going to have to get JuJu involved.
Got to.
And JuJu is finding out what it's like to be the number one, the guy that everybody builds their defense to try and stop.
Right. I think he'll adjust because JuJu's a great kid. His spirit is right.
Right.
And by the way, you helped raise him as a football player. Definitely. With credit to his mother and his family and
There is no version of Caitlin Clark that some people will ever accept because their issue isn't with her actions, it's with her existence. And yes, race and sexuality play a role, let's not pretend otherwise. Clark is a white, straight, Midwestern phenom in a league where many longtime fans deeply identify with Black and LGBTQ+ culture. Her rapid rise and mainstream appeal have disrupted the status quo, and for some, that's uncomfortable.
Caitlin brought so much new attention to the rise in women's college basketball and the WNBA and women's sports in general.
Great player, good person as well. She's been great, and I'm really excited for her at this next stage in her career.
Caitlin Clark becomes the all-time leading scorer in major college basketball.
For some, Caitlin Clark's success feels like an invasion, no matter how much she respects the game. That's not her fault, but it is her reality. And until the WNBA acknowledges and addresses this growing toxicity, the drama will never stop. Clark isn't the first player to use the word kid. She isn't the first athlete to show support for an injured rival. But somehow, when she does it, it turns into a scandal. The double standard is impossible to ignore, and it reveals what this is really about.
Beautiful pass. Varnish the bounce.
Imagine if the roles were reversed. What if JuJu Watkins, or any other WNBA rookie, had called Caitlin Clark *kid* in a supportive tweet? The reaction would have been silence. No outrage, no think pieces, no accusations of disrespect. It wouldn't have been a story at all.
Some of your peers, they will recognize, her game, but they won't recognize her impact.
Right.
How can you separate the two? It's kind of
hard, right? And I used, Jax, you're absolutely right. And I was like, come on.
In fact, if the roles were reversed, it likely would have been praised as veteran leadership or sisterhood in sports. But because it's Caitlin Clark, the rules suddenly change. The same people who preach support women's sports instantly turn into the grammar police, analyzing her every word like it's part of a congressional hearing. The agenda is clear: Clark must be villainized at all costs. And this isn't just speculation, it's a pattern. Remember when Diana Taurasi joked that rookies like Clark would get a reality check in the WNBA? The media framed it as competitive fire. But when Clark makes an innocent comment, it's labeled arrogance. The double standard couldn't be more obvious.
How would you describe how she's handled it, particularly a kid months out of college?
I think she handles it great. She always surprised me in the way that she is always, herself. She's always light. She's always having fun. With all this attention and all this pressure, things being said, both positive and negative about her, she always comes in every single day and is the same Caitlin and is very consistent. So it's been a cool thing.
When other players celebrate aggressively, it's called passion. When Clark does it, it's labeled entitlement. The double standard isn't just obvious, it's intentional. This isn't about fairness or sportsmanship. It's about controlling a narrative that paints Clark as the outsider, someone who doesn't truly deserve her success.
Caitlin, earlier in the show, we spoke with your former college coach, Lisa Bluter, about the chemistry on that Hawkeyes team in the face of the spotlight. How important was that sisterhood?
Yeah, I think that's the reason we were as good as we were. We weren't always the most talented group. We had great players, but it was because of that bond that we shared with one another. And obviously Coach Bluter, in my eyes, she's the best leader I've ever been.
And here's the kicker: the same critics attacking Clark's tweet love to preach about unity, yet their actions say otherwise. They don't actually want women's basketball to grow, they want it to stay their exclusive club. And if that means dragging down the league's biggest star and stunting its popularity just to spite Clark, so be it. That's not fandom, it's sabotage. The real issue isn't Clark's tweet, her word choice, or even her success. It's a toxic fan culture that would rather gatekeep the sport than see it thrive. Until that changes, the drama won't stop, and neither will the hypocrisy. Let's call it what it is: the WNBA has a toxicity problem. Not from the players, but from a loud, vocal faction of fans who see the league as a social battleground instead of a sports league. For years, the WNBA fought for relevance. Now that Caitlin Clark is bringing historic attention, those same fans would rather tear it all down than share the spotlight. This isn't support, it's territorialism. The evidence is everywhere. Look at how certain fan accounts celebrated Clark's early struggles in the WNBA. Look at the gleeful posts every time she misses a shot. Look at the relentless memes comparing her to villains. This isn't normal sports rivalry, it's personal. It's obsessive. And it's not coming from casual viewers, it's coming from the self-proclaimed real fans.
To do it just by playing basketball and having fun and kind of living my dream.
And have you spoken to JuJu about that?
I'm talking to JuJu a little bit. Obviously, I kind of watch from a distance, but honestly, more than anything, I just try to be supportive. She's talented, and her game it speaks for itself, and she's so fun to watch. And as you can tell, our number 12, that's all it's about. And that means, we have so much respect for her, and so much better, and she already is really good, so it's scary to think about.
She scored the last 10 for USC.
Here's the uncomfortable question. If Clark weren't white, straight, and from Iowa, would the backlash be this extreme? We all know the answer. The WNBA's most toxic fringe doesn't just resent Clark's fame, they resent who she represents. And until the league confronts this reality, the infighting will keep holding women's basketball back from the growth it deserves.
USC lost JuJu Watkins for the rest of the tournament due to a knee injury, looks like a torn ACL. And this is when the sport loses. There are times when there's injuries, but then there's injuries that hurt the entire sport. When Tiger was out, for a variety of reasons, or had surgeries, or the car accident, like the sport is hurt. Brady, when he blew out his knee, or